All right, lace them up sports. Let's go.
Let's go.
The LA Sports
Roundup podcast.
Was there any doubt? Shohei Ohtani arrives in October with a 3-run home run. To beat the champ, you gotta knock him out. The Dodgers stand tall and win back-to-back titles.
Pulls back, three-pointer, bang! Luka Doncic nails the three. Timeout Rockets. Luka Magic is alive.
Is he in? Yes! Touchdown, Puka Nacua! Touchdown, LA!
Final seconds, Reeves. It'll count if it goes.
Oh, he puts it in! From half court at the buzzer! Under pressure, Donald got there in the air, intercepted by the Rams, and they may ride to the Super Bowl on that.
You see a guy with a Celtics jersey at Disneyland, I'm ready to kill him. Just because he's wearing a Garnett jersey, and I'm pissed.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the LA Sports Roundup podcast. I am your host, Mike Andrade, sitting here recording live August 12th, 2026. When I woke up this morning, my phone was blowing up. I did not expect the news that we got this morning, and thank God I did not record yesterday, because I would have kicked myself in the butt if I recorded yesterday, which I was kind of wanting to do, but thank God something else came up from work and I couldn't. And so today, I woke up, I already had planned that I was going to record this podcast, but I did not expect the news that ultimately we got this morning in terms of the Lakers. Mark Walter, our owner, has decided to sell the team. Only 14 months on the job. The initial sale began last June. Only 14 months on the job, and he has already decided to sell the team. This time to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner. These two guys, they have teamed up to buy the Lakers for $12.5 billion. An incredible amount of money. An incredible amount. We have a lot to talk about on that regard right now. Again, I was planning to talk a lot about the Clippers. I was planning to talk a lot about the Rams, the Chargers. So a packed show for you guys today. Of course, you guys can always find us on at Lace 'em Up Sports on all of our social medias. Find us on Instagram, find us on X, find us on YouTube. Of course, if you're listening on Spotify, you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Wherever podcasts are streamed, you can find Lace 'em Up Sports Media. You can find this LA Sports Roundup podcast, and you can find our other podcasts, Wrestling with Ryan and Mike, where we talk all things pro wrestling, if that is your jam. But, alright, as I mentioned at the top of this podcast, the Lakers, Mark Walter has decided to sell to Josh Kushner and Bob Iger for $12.5 billion, a record-breaking price according to multiple reports here. And I'm going to read you a report from Ramona Shelburne from ESPN, and this is how it goes. The businessmen were involved in the expansion process in Las Vegas, meaning Kushner and Bob Iger. But in a stunning turn, they pivoted to make an aggressive offer to buy the Lakers from Mark Walter, who had purchased a controlling interest in the team from the Buss family last year for then a record franchise evaluation of approximately $10 billion. And that was only 14 months ago. Only 14 months ago, they were approximately $10 billion, and already has raised $2.5 billion. That is incredible. Anyways, so this is quote. As lifelong NBA fans, we are deeply honored for the opportunity to become stewards of the Los Angeles Lakers and one of the most iconic sports franchises in the world. We have immense respect for our leadership and vision of Jerry and Jeannie Buss. Kushner and Iger said in a statement, "Our long-term commitment is to build on that foundation, compete at the highest level, and serve this extraordinary team, its fans, and the city of Los Angeles." Walter, the CEO and chair of diversified holding company TWG Global, has been the Lakers' majority owner since last October, when his bid was unanimously approved by the NBA. "Owning the Los Angeles Lakers has been one of the great honors of my life," said Walter. "An extraordinary investment, but what I will carry with me is the community, the fans, and the city that treats this team as family. I'm grateful to Jeannie, the Buss family, the players, and the staff for welcoming me into this chapter. The Los Angeles Lakers and I have every confidence the best is still ahead, Walter said in a statement. The sale will need approval from the NBA Board of Governors, and that process can take several weeks. The next board meeting is set for next month in New York. Walter and TWG Global have interest in multiple sports, including the Dodgers, Sparks, Premier League Club Chelsea, and Professional Women's Hockey League, and motorsports as well. So going down here, Walter, 66, is selling the Lakers in this transaction, so sources told ESPN. Walter, who built his financial empire in the insurance industry, is under federal investigation for alleged tax fraud by other companies tied to the billionaire. So I spoke about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast, if you guys recall. Walter, he's being investigated right now for tax fraud. I think it's some money laundering into some other savings accounts, where the money was not supposed to go. So that's very, very important to know here. Very, very important. Look, guys, this cannot be stated enough. If this is one of the reasonings why Walter is selling right now, then this is huge. And by if the chance Walter sells the Dodgers in the upcoming weeks or months, then you absolutely know that it has to do with this alleged tax fraud investigation and what Mark Walter and his lawyers see coming in the pipeline for him, because this is not good. This is not good. And I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. I said that if Walter, and the Gugenheim group and whoever's involved in this tax fraud, if they're deemed to be, at fault here, guilty, then both leagues, the MLB, the NBA, they can come down on Walter. They could have come down on Walter to sell both franchises. They could have. Look, separate from all this news this morning, look, that was the ramifications I spoke about a couple weeks ago. But now, this is insane. And it makes you think, it makes you wonder that all of this, what we're finding out, has to do with the alleged tax fraud. People didn't think it was a big deal when I spoke about it, but I think there's more coming down the pipeline than what we can imagine here, because Mark Walter, use your brains here, guys. He just didn't decide, I'm going to get out of the Lakers business. I spent all this money, and I think I'm just going to get my return on it, get an extra $2.5 billion. I mean, he could have, but I don't think that was the case. I really don't. I think he was committed to the Lakers as much as he was committed to the Dodgers. But something came along the pipeline here where he decided, or maybe it was all of the board of governors for the Lakers and people that have majority interest in the Lakers getting together and convincing Walter to sell, because they knew what was in the pipeline coming. It wasn't, I feel like, and this is just my gut reaction, this wasn't just a thing that Mark Walter decided to do on his own. So going back to the article here, Bloomberg reported that in July that U.S. prosecutors in Manhattan are examining whether Delaware Life Insurance Company and Clearspring Life and Annuity, two insurers controlled by Walter, failed to disclose that their private credit holdings backed other Walter-controlled ventures. The Securities and Exchange Commission is running a parallel investigation, according to the Bloomberg report. Yeah, it makes me wonder if these things are very, very correlated here. And to be honest, that is my gut feeling that they are. That they very much are, But going on to the, potential owners here of the Los Angeles Lakers, we'll start with Josh Kushner. Kushner, 41, founded and runs venture capital firm Thrive Capital and is the co-founder and vice chairman of Oscar Health. Kushner is the brother of President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who runs Thrive Eternal, and the investment fund FIFA wanted to sell a minority stake to run its World Cup tournaments for $4.2 billion. FIFA president Gianni Infantino withdrew that proposal earlier this month. Kushner also holds a minority stake in the Miami Heat and previously was a minority owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. He will have to sell his stake in the Heat to clear the way for the Lakers' purchase. Iger, 75, was succeeded this year as Disney CEO Josh D'Amore, ending his second term in the role. In 2024, with wife Willow Bay, he became the controlling owner of the NWSL team Angel City Football Club. So yeah, we have the former CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, now is majority owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, along with Josh Kushner. Now, you're going to ask, what does this mean for the Lakers, the team itself? Honestly, it really doesn't change anything going into this upcoming season. We're about 2 months away from the start of the regular season, so it's not going to mean much in terms of, definitely not going to mean much in terms of roster moves, or front office, or anything like that, because those things are already set in place. Rob Pelinka will be the general manager for the next couple of years. This team is already put together on paper in terms of contracts and everything. We are clearly building around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves together, along with Walker Kessler, so it has nothing to do with the team. But what it does mean is, look, in a statement, they said they want to be able to be elite in terms of the way they run the Lakers and putting the Lakers first and foremost, and I hope that is the case. I hope that they're able to invest into the Lakers as much as we hoped Mark Walter would. We're hoping that they're going to be able to invest into this team as Mark Walter did for the Dodgers, in terms of the training facility, equipment, bringing in players, not being able to, not being afraid to pay players. That's going to be a huge thing. And I hope that's going to be Bob Iger's and Josh Kushner's main objective in terms of running this franchise the way it should be ran, in terms of it being top class. I mean, this is the Los Angeles Lakers we're talking about. Okay, we cannot. The Lakers are not about being middle of the pack here, or certainly not about being a team that is a penny pinching team, to say the least. And I know that was a black eye on Jeannie Buss in terms of the way she ran the franchise the last several years. But you know what? This is the Los Angeles Lakers, and we need to be able to be top class in every bit. And so I hope that is Bob Iger's and Josh Kushner's main objective in terms of running this franchise, and also putting the people in place that they can trust to do their jobs at an elite level as well. So if that keeps Rob Pelinka in his seat, or if it means bringing somebody else in, hopefully they know what they're doing in terms of that regard, and bringing in people that they can trust to run their job at the best level possible. So that's my hope. And hopefully this is something that can stay for the long run, and hopefully Kushner and Iger can come together and run this thing effectively, because ultimately that's what you want to see as a Laker fan. You don't really care about the hoopla and this, that, and the other, and all the legalities of it. We can care less. All we care about is what the team looks like, and is every detail in this organization being ran effectively to the best possible way it can be. Because ultimately, it comes down to the money that is being put into this team in terms of no cost is worried about. In terms of the training facility and the players that are being brought in, that is key. And number two, what does the on-court product look like? Does this team mesh well together? Do they gel well together? And that's ultimately what Laker fans care about, is does this team play well enough for us to win basketball games? Are we a winning basketball team? Are we competitive? Are we going to be competitive in the playoffs for us to be considered favorites to win the NBA Finals? That's what Laker fans care about more than anything else. And if Bob Iger and Josh Kushner can set those two precedents, then I think they're gonna, do well on this job. But I'd hate to see them come in, not know what they're doing, screw everything up, and us look like we're a giant shit show. Okay, for years, the current reigning defending NBA champion Knicks were ran disastrously by the Dolan family. They did not care whatsoever in terms of bringing in players that fit the culture. They did not care about spending money on the team, and it showed for 30 plus years, maybe 40 years. The Knicks were a giant shit show up until this past season, where they won the NBA championship, and it all paid off for them. Right, but we've seen it time and time again where ownership does not invest into the team, or they don't know what they're doing, and it screws everything up on the on-court. And that's ultimately what fans care about, is the on-court. But if the ownership is a bunch of clowns out there, then man, it's just embarrassing. And the fans, we have seen it where they have protested outside Staples Center. Remember when the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers? Those Mav fans, they're protesting the next day out there. Okay, so the fans aren't afraid to let you know how exactly they feel. All right. So if management is looking like a bunch of clowns out there, we're going to let them know. All right. Because ultimately what comes down to is the team in a position to win. And if the answer is no, then there's going to be problems for Josh Kushner and Bob Iger. Okay. And so as a Laker fan, all I care about is the on-court product and where we're at, in terms of our growth, our building, who we're bringing in to pair up with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, because those are our two main core, and alongside Walker Kessler. Right? How is this team building? How is this team growing? How are they fitting under JJ Redick's coaching systems? Right? That's what's most important here. But it starts with the management. It really does. Also, we have seen it before as Laker fans. We've seen the dynamics between Jeannie Buss and Jim Buss when they were at each other's throats in terms of who was controlling the team. That was horrible. That was a time when the Lakers were at their worst. And so we've seen shitty management before. And that's the last thing any Laker fans want to be able to see here. So, again, just to recap here, the Lakers have been sold for $12.5 billion, a record-setting sale for any NBA franchise, and so this is really, really big news. And I'll repeat it. This is not just something that Mark Walter decided to do on his own. I guarantee you that this is something that I feel like he was coerced into selling, because he just bought the team 14 months ago, and literally the sale finally went through in October. So not even a full year as complete owner of the Lakers, and I feel like this is something that is it's only going to get worse, because look, if he sells the Dodgers, that's going to tell you a lot in terms of what's down the pipeline for Mark Walter. But I digress. Bits and pieces of the upcoming NBA schedule was released a couple days ago. The Lakers will find themselves not playing on opening night. Traditionally, the Lakers do play on opening night, but they'll be playing on the second night of the NBA season. They'll be playing opening up against the Golden State Warriors. Is this at home? No, they're going to be playing on the road. So the Lakers will be playing on the road to start the season against the Warriors. And then Christmas Day will be playing against none other than LeBron James. LeBron James coming back home to LA to face the Lakers. And that's going to be a hot ticket. Obviously, the NBA, Adam Silver, they were waiting on LeBron James to make his decision so they could release the schedule. And basically all that was whatever team LeBron James was going to sign with, they were going to be playing at LA, at Staples Center against the Lakers. And so that was basically it. Other than that, some NBA Cup games were announced, but that's not really that important. But the remainder of the regular season will be released, I believe, tomorrow. So we'll look out for that as well. But it's always cool to get a little bits and pieces about the schedule coming up. And Lakers in Philadelphia on Christmas Day. That's going to be something to watch. Alright, so from one big news to another, something that I was going to make a primary focus on this podcast before all the Lakers stuff, but the Kawhi Leonard and Aspiration Clippers investigation from the Pablo Torre podcast has not concluded. In fact, it has held up this Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard Clippers trade for a couple months now. Kawhi Leonard is supposed to be a Toronto Raptor, and he is not, because the NBA has continued to investigate the LA Clippers in terms of them potentially paying Kawhi Leonard under the table, recircumventing the salary cap by having his sponsorship Aspiration being funded by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. And so that's what's been holding up this trade here. If they find that the Clippers were guilty in all this in terms of paying Kawhi Leonard under the table with his sponsorship, a sponsorship that was basically funded by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, that is a huge, huge thing. And there's, like I've said before on many podcasts, there could be huge ramifications and sanctions held against the Clippers. And that's why the Toronto Raptors are holding up this deal. But new news has been found by Pablo Torre in terms of Kawhi Leonard reportedly having a deal with Daktronics, the Clippers video board manufacturer. And Daktronics they do a lot of video board and electronics for many teams around the NBA. But I'm going to read you a piece, this time coming from The Athletic. This is being written by Dan Wilkie. And so here it goes. Kawhi Leonard, who is at the center of an NBA investigation into potential cap circumvention involving the LA Clippers and Aspiration, received millions in a second undisclosed sponsorship, according to a report by the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. The podcast, citing multiple anonymous sources inside the Clippers and the Intuit Dome project, reported that Leonard had a previously unknown deal with Daktronics, the company that manufactured the Intuit Dome's Halo video screen and other sports world. The Clippers have been under investigation by the law firm Watchell, Lipton, Rosen & Katz, with a focus on a $28 million endorsement deal given to Leonard by Aspiration, a now bankrupt environmental company and former Clippers sponsor since September. Clippers owner Steve Ballmer has maintained that he was defrauded by Aspiration. Okay, that was his input. He was defrauded, even though he he took money into it on his own. And his co-founder Joe Sandberg. Sandberg was sentenced this past June to 14 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud. On Torre's latest podcast, released Thursday night, cites multiple sources who said that Leonard was a Clippers spokesperson for Daktronics. It's unclear when the contract began and ended. One anonymous source told Torre that the contract was for millions of dollars. When the podcast asked the company to confirm if Leonard had an endorsement deal, it referred to them to a spokesperson for a crisis management firm who said, "My understanding is that Daktronics doesn't have a deal with Kawhi right now." When asked for clarification, the spokesman said, "I don't know what the company wants to say or can say given the Watchwell investigation and all of that." According to Daktronics' website, the company produces video boards for several NBA teams, including the Phoenix Suns, Charlotte Hornets, Milwaukee Bucks, Detroit Pistons, Memphis Grizzlies, and Brooklyn Nets. A search for Kawhi Leonard returned no results on the company's website. A spokesperson for the NBA didn't respond to the Athletic's request for comment on the latest allegations. The Clippers have not responded to requests for comment. The investigation into the Clippers and Leonard has dragged on since last fall. As part of the investigation, the law firm is examining if Leonard had a previously unreported endorsement deal with another company, according to multiple sources who spoke to The Athletic on the condition of the anonymity in order to speak freely. The results of that investigation are currently holding up a trade that would send Leonard from the Clippers to the Toronto Raptors, the team he left in free agency in 2019. The league did not pause the trade, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said in July of the Clippers-Raptors deal. The parties of the trade made a decision not to go forward given that the investigation remained open and any possible impact on Kawhi or his contract was yet to be known. And so, they choose not to live with that uncertainty, but that was well known before the trade was proposed. I don't think that there was any reason for people to believe that the status of Kawhi Leonard would change merely because he was traded. The investigation needs to run its course. Silver said earlier this summer that the investigation can be wrapped up before the NBA Finals, and that was certainly not the case. And he said it could be wrapped up before next season. Well, next season is only a couple months away, so we'll see about that. If the NBA finds that there was a violation of the CBA, it can fine the Clippers millions of dollars, strip them of first-round picks, penalize Ballmer, and even void Leonard's contract. When Leonard became a free agent in 2019, okay, this is an important part here, and this ties into the Lakers. When Leonard became a free agent in 2019, his representatives, including his uncle Dennis Robertson, asked the Los Angeles Lakers for several impermissible benefits, including to multiple league sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity so they could candidly discuss the situation. Those included the use of a private aircraft, a home, guaranteed off-court earnings, and even an ownership stake in the team. The Lakers, according to those sources, informed Leonard's team that those requests violated the NBA's collective bargaining agreement and amounted to salary cap circumvention. Leonard and the Clippers have maintained their innocence throughout this investigation. This is a quote here. "I think we're going to be in the clear," Leonard said after the Clippers season. "It's not stressing." Wow, that is a lot. Let's look at those demands. A private jet, Okay, I mean, that could be for any major player, right? But team ownership? Are you serious? Team ownership? A small percentage of team ownership? That is insane. Housing? I mean, I guess, right? I mean, that would definitely be circumventing the cap, at least for the least bit. Endorsements? Again, if it's not something that's, accepted by the NBA, then that could have some ramifications in itself, too. But good on the Lakers. Good on the Lakers for telling Uncle Dennis and Kawhi no to those requests because those are ridiculous. Those are completely ridiculous. Okay? You cannot expect that. Even, if the Lakers had nobody on their team, I feel like they still would have said no. But granted, they had LeBron James and they're going after Anthony Davis. The Lakers were in no position to say yes to all those demands, and good for them to not give in because they would have been dragged into this. And I would hate to see that, But yeah, I mean, if Kawhi Leonard is found having another second endorsement here, then that cannot be good. I cannot see that trade with the Toronto Raptors going through. I feel like suspension would be almost guaranteed. And yeah, sanctions would be up the rear for the Clippers. Steve Ballmer, his position with the Clippers, could he be forced to sell? I mean, that could be another situation too. We just talked about Mark Walter being possibly forced to sell a couple weeks ago, and look what happened here. He already sold. All right? Steve Ballmer on this case, look, the NBA, Adam Silver, he's done it to the Clippers once, and granted that was a completely different situation. But when shit like this happens, it's on the owner, and there's gonna have to be some major ramifications in that realm. And so definitely maybe a suspension for Ballmer, but who knows? Who knows? Suspension for Kawhi Leonard and stripping them of all the draft picks and whatever they can. Yeah, it's big. So. Who knows when this is going to be wrapped up? This is still ongoing. It's been ongoing since last year. But at the same time, there's still some bits and pieces that they need to wrap up here, and it's getting closer to this start of the NBA season. You cannot have Kawhi Leonard in a Clippers uniform playing. If Kawhi Leonard is playing for the Clippers next season, that's insane to think about. That really is, and that cannot be allowed. Whether he's suspended or he's playing with the Toronto Raptors. It has to be one of those two. But he cannot be playing with the Clippers next season whatsoever. All right, moving on to football here. The Rams, more specifically, Aaron Donald is continuing to ramp up in terms of a potential comeback to the LA Rams and to continue his legendary NFL career already a Hall of Fame career, but this guy is continuing to ramp it up. Still no official word of Aaron Donald in terms of him officially coming back to the Rams, but look, this guy's already on the field. He was already on the field with Poona Ford, Brandon Fisk, who was a landman out there. I think, Aaron Donald, he's already at the phase where you've seen the videos of him already. His footwork, he looks like a running back out there in terms of his footwork. He looks like a wide receiver. I mean, his footwork is pristine out there. It looks like this guy obviously we haven't seen him with full pads yet. Obviously it is much different in a game, but just on the field with, just him working out with the guys, he looks incredible out there. He does. Here's my personal take on Aaron Donald. Look, this guy has already made the commitment to go forward with the on-field practices, one-on-one practices, the training in terms of getting his body right. He is 100% committed to returning to the NFL. They just need to figure out the numbers. That's all it really comes down to. Just figuring out the numbers of how he's going to get paid, because I think it's not as simple as people think, because he was retired. He still has some money owed back on his original contract that he had signed. And so in that regard, I think they're still trying to figure out some numbers here. But Aaron Donald is good as back, and I think give it by the end of this week. By Friday, they're going to make it official. I'm already working on some graphics myself in terms of his comeback, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, because we're already heading into the first preseason game. The first preseason game for the Rams is coming up against the Chiefs. The Chiefs. They're playing the Chiefs. But some news and notes coming out. The Rams did have a joint practice with the Dallas Cowboys this Wednesday. Some injury reports here. One on Myles Garrett. This is a report off the Rams.com. Rams head coach Sean McVay said Defensive end Myles Garrett is dealing with a little swelling in his knee, so the team arrayed on the side of caution by holding him out Tuesday. Okay, so it was Tuesday's joint practice with the Cowboys. McVay said there wasn't any setbacks. It is the second consecutive practice Garrett had missed, but like last week, McVay emphasized that he wasn't worried about Garrett. He still got a little swelling in that knee, but he said, "I'm feeling about 85%," McVay said after the joint practice. Also, I don't know what 100% is going to look like, but it must be pretty good if that is 85%. So we'll just leave it at that. Some swelling in his knee. I'm not quite sure from what that is causing the swelling, but he's ultimately suffering from it. So, hopefully that Myles Garrett, with the knee injury could be ready to go by week number 1. Puka Nacua left the joint practice on Tuesday with a little groin strain. It wasn't anything too serious as well, but Puka Nacua, obviously, he plays really hard out there, and he has been prone to some injuries out there. So hopefully they're, but same thing with Myles Garrett. They're just erring on the side of caution with the little groin tweak or strain, whatever it is. And so hopefully Puka Nacua can just rehab it for the next week or two and be ready for week 1 as well. But yeah, that's really all on the Rams side. What really anyone is looking forward to right now is just is the official announcement of Aaron Donald coming back. That's all people want to hear. That's all people want to see right now. And I think it happens very, very soon for the Rams. And I think once that happens, people are just going to have a little less weight on their shoulders, and it's going to be a little less tension. And I think, we're going to feel really, really good heading into it. We are already feeling good about this season, but having Aaron Donald back officially will be the cherry on the cake here, And look, that'll be the just the start, though. All right, this team still has to put it together on the field, but in terms of right now, it'll be the cherry on the cake. Lastly, here I want to report this. Mina Kimes at ESPN has the Los Angeles Chargers, not the Los Angeles Rams, as a Super Bowl contender coming into the 2026 season. Here's a quote by Mina Kimes. Ceiling is Super Bowl, Kimes told Chargers.com. It's a Super Bowl contender. If you're listing the teams that have a realistic shot at it, I think LA, speaking of the Chargers, is in the mix, Kimes added. The ESPN NFL analyst recently visited the Chargers training camp and got an up-close view of the team ahead and what she believes is a big year ahead. As for why that is, there's plenty of areas Kimes will be interested in following once the season starts. But as been the case since February, the intrigue starts with the offensive side of the ball. This is a quote, "I'd like to be a hipster, but it's the offense." The pairing of Mike McDaniel with the Chargers has been a hot topic throughout the NFL all offseason, including with Kimes on TV. That's funny right there. The list of which offensive players will benefit the most is long, Kimes said, whether you point at quarterback Justin Herbert or the multitude of skill players who will have major opportunities. All eyes are on the Chargers this season, Kimes said. It's one of the hottest topics of the entire season. We've talked about it on a ton on NFL Live. Everybody is so excited to see what Mike McDaniel does here with these weapons. Some of the guys he brought in, the evolution of it, how it helps Justin Herbert. I would also add how it helps some of the existing wide receivers. I'll be optimistic and interested. She goes, I feel like the entire NFL media is going to be watching week 1 very closely, Kimes added. So that's very kind words, she said, about the Chargers. And yeah, honestly, the Chargers have been a team that has been on the cusp now. They've been on the rise. And so I feel like, they can make a huge difference in the AFC, especially that AFC West division. It's going to be really tough. You still have the Broncos. You still have the Chiefs in that division. But I think the Chargers could be right there. Who knows what the Chiefs are going to be with Mahomes coming off of that injury. The Broncos, obviously, Bo Nix is still, I don't know if he's going to be playing or not. You guys let me know there. So there's an opportunity there for the Chargers to take control of that AFC West in terms of just they have to be on top of it. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Take advantage of this opportunity to really get a hold of that division, and I think this is a prime opportunity for them to do so. All right, you guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's podcast. Again, you can always follow us on all of our social medias, on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok. TikTok is ever so growing. And I just want to say we're going to be doing a lot more streaming coming up into the Lakers season. I want to do more streaming of post-game content, so look out for that on TikTok, on YouTube. And I just want to be able to continue to grow our fan base that way. And that starts with you guys supporting and subscribing and liking on all of our social media platforms. And I just can't thank you guys enough for continuing to listen in. And you know what? Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So, until next time, guys. See you on another one.